Chuck, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting edition of Soul Now and with the second I'm back, and I'm the host Ronald. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting edition of Soul Now and the future with the second economic impact on Black America. And I'm the host Ronald today, and I'm will be joined shortly by my guest today, Mr. Charles Banks, and we'll be looking at the issue of affordability in the PJM. So let me see if I can get my host, my guest, into the meeting room. Okay. Okay. Okay, Chuck, can you hear me? Yes, sir. I'm trying to get in now. Okay. I'm saying up. Oh, can you hear me, Chuck? There you go. Oh, all right. We get the show on the road. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting edition of Soul Now and the future with the economic impact on Black America. And I'm your host, and you know, join the regular basis. So for this show, if there's power in numbers and the positive change purchase in store for the LLC, capture that power for your financial benefit. The positive change purchase core of LLC serves as an economic blueprint for renewable energy companies, both
Excuse me, Ron.
small.
You got a little feedback.
I'm trying to resolve that issue right now. I think I got too many windows open. Uh, I'm going on this. Hold on this.
You're almost getting an echo effect.
I know. Okay. Let me see here. Okay. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we straight now. I think so. I'm afraid I'm gonna cut this video off. Let me see here. Okay, let me see. That didn't do it. Oh, what are you doing?
Hello.
You there?
I'm here.
Oh,
There you
oh, okay. Let me see.
You still got a little echo. I don't know what the heck.
You there now?
I'm here.
Okay. I think it's the echo problem. Okay. All right. Let's get
I'm here.
okay. We still here.
I'm here, but you got a little echo effect.
Okay. I'm trying my best.
Sound like it's leaving.
Okay. Technology. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the technical difficulties I'm having this morning. I'm seeing getting the uh echo effect, and I'm afraid that I'm hello?
Yes, sir.
I think we solved the problem.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Now we can get this show on the road.
All right.
I don't think we're being recorded right now. I think that's what happened was that it says AI YouTube. Okay, well, we'll see whether it's working. Let's see if this live stream is still working here. Recording on audio, live stream, studio. You hit more, and it does not even give me a thing for a live stream. So I'm just going to go ahead with the show. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting edition of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. And I'm your host, Ronald Bethea. And you know, if you join us on a regular basis, the slogan for this show, if there's power in the numbers, then the Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative LLC captures that power for your financial benefit. The Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative LLC serves as an economic blueprint for renewable energy companies, both large and small, along with increasing market share for African and African American owned renewable energy companies to address the high energy costs at our historically Black colleges and universities. Well, today's show, I'm sort of fixed on a subject matter I've been discussing with my listening audience for about a month now. If many of you have been following us here on the platform of Solar Now, we've been talking about the issue of affordability and the PJM, which is the regulatory entity that regulates the wholesale cost of energy in the 13 state region, with the District of Columbia taking in some 13 states, impacting some 67 million ratepayers. We have I'm very blessed today to have Mr. Charles Banks on my show with me today. We're going to be, as we would say, sort of chopping this up and looking at what are the actual impacts and what is going on here in the PJM region, which has basically brought in the ire and the attention of so many governors and elected officials in this area. Now, to open up, I'm going to sort of set the table by sharing some information that was put out back on May 11th at the spring meeting for the PJM, which was held in Baltimore, Maryland. And this is the actual opening. A keynote speaker for the PJM meeting was Governor Wes Moore. And Governor Wes Moore opened up his delivery back on May 11th, calling the nation's largest grid opportunity to partner with to lower energy costs, to increase grid reliability, and protect working families. Speaking to hundreds of utility executives, state regulators, and elected officials from across 14, as I've indicated, 14 jurisdictions. The governor outlined 3 specific actions the PJM must take to address the regional energy affordability crisis. For too long, affordability and reliability has been framed in competing goals. Somehow keeping the lights on tomorrow requires working families to pay crushing prices today in a false choice, said Governor Moore. Reliability without affordability is not reliability. It's a transfer of payment. Affordability without reliability is not relief. It's just a way to make ratepayers' pain permanent and erode trust in the system. The cost of inaction is increasing cost to people. And let's move in partnership and move now. During his address, Wes Moore cited 3 very distinct points: delivery and reliability, backstop procurement on the schedule. PJM must hold an auction in September and provide a 15-year price certainty to ensure the cost of new energy resources allocated to those who are driving the cost of that need. To ensure data centers pay their own way, PJM must require companies fueling the surge in electricity demand to bear the cost of the grid infrastructure rather than passing the burden to households and small businesses. Clear interconnection queue. The PJM must move faster to improve affordability energy resources, particularly storage, and rather than relitigating technology, and decided this. Now, this is the backdrop of this particular opening article that Governor Wes Moore basically laid out what was going on and what needs to happen. At the same time that we're talking about that, since Governor Moore and the PJM has met on June 9th, 2026, here we go with 47's administration doubling down on the coal industry. Let's take a quick look at an article that was just put out by Evergreen Action that basically talks about what has taken place since the May 11th meeting. Now, this particular article was authored by the Evergreen Action team and Mrs. Laura Moffitt, who is the CEO. She had this to say: Trump's recent drop in the news using emergency war power on hand. Now, this is what people have to understand about him keeping this war going on in the Middle East. He can utilize the War Powers Act, and this is what has taken place. Nearly $700 million in taxpayer money to a dying coal industry. He has lowered our energy bills. He's not lowering our energy bills, which we know as other promises were made, but he's bailing out of coal plants in already what we would call a dead industry. 425 million to prop up 13 failing coal plants in 10 states. 75 million for a new coal export terminal in Oakland, California. Nearly 200 million to bail out two new coal plants first since 2013 and to restart another one in the state of Maryland. Now, this is the doubling down and what we would call doubling down on insanity. But this is what has taken place. That's why I asked my associate here, Mr. Banks, to join us today because he has been working on a project in South Carolina for several years on a major solar power plant, which he's going to also be able to bring to the forefront. And we're going to talk about a solution for the problem, because everybody can talk about the problem, but what's the solution? Well, the solution was built into the Greenhouse Gas Initiative, and this initiative was called the Justice 40 Initiative, and under that there was a Greenhouse Gas Initiative that pumped some $27 billion, which was approved by Congress to pay for what we would call the Solar Fall program. Inside of that initiative was a initiative called Community Solar, which was set to benefit 900,000 low and moderate income residents across all 50 states. And this community solar project could have not flourished in those states unless those states passed what we would call deregulation, which when we began to look at Ohio, Illinois, Maine, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, the District of Columbia, Virginia, parts of West Virginia, some parts of North Carolina and Michigan are also impacted by this deregulation. Well, the deregulation in these states have allowed what we refer to a number of these states as blue states to move more efficiently and faster in adopting what we would call subscription solar for those who don't live in homes and don't have rooftops, to be able to take advantage of what we would call green energy credits. And with that being said, I'm going to bring my brother, Mr. Banks, right on to the forefront. And would you please share a little bit on your background, brother? And thank you for joining me this morning.
Oops. Good morning. Good morning. I got a call coming in here.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Good morning. Man, you fire hoses with info this morning.
Well, I'm trying to.
I know you were setting the table. But I'm not sure if everybody could keep up.
Yeah, well, that's why we want to take a little time and sort of break this down, because it's not that difficult.
Right.
Either you live in a home, an apartment, or maybe a fabricated facility such as a mobile trailer homes. Many of them are
Right.
very, very attractive, but people live somewhere. And wherever you live, you got to have electricity. And we are being impacted by this massive buildup throughout the PJM region because the PJM is the oldest regulatory authority and it has the most density in population with over 67 million ratepayers. So I guess that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to sort of let people know why their electricity bill is so damn high.
Right. And the PJM, I'm going to assume that's the most advanced region that we have in the country. I think we got what, 7 or 8 different regions, but
Yeah,
PJM may be
I
the
think
most sophisticated.
you have about 7 and 8 because New York State has their own what we would call RTO, Regional
Right.
Transmission Authority. Texas has its own, California,
Right.
Arizona, and
MISO.
Nevada. But then you
Right.
have the MISO, which takes care from the Gulf all the way up to Canada, and several Canadian provinces are in that regulatory entity. And you have several others that are off the top of my head omits me this morning. But the
Right. Right.
point is that all of them are basically controlled by the Federal Regulatory Commission, and we have
Regulated.
and each state has a public service commission, and some of those states, inside of those states, they have a office of people's counsel, which sort of helps legally provide challenges to the public service commissions in those states if that public office of people's counsel feel that transparency has not taking place as they go through the process of making. So that is what we're talking about as it relates to the regulatory transmission authority organizations. They're the ones who are responsible for setting the annual wholesale rates, which are passed through to us in the form of capacity charges on our electricity bill.
Right. Now, the I'm not going to say it's unsettling, but it's a little disturbing that PJM, which is supposed to be the better situation, uh, had blockages on what, several hundred projects that were supposedly going online.
Yeah, well, let me sort of
Renewable projects.
yeah
Renewable projects. I don't want to jump ahead.
let me sort of set the table or sort of on the statement or give our listening audience some clarity. The PJM, which sets the annual wholesale rates, in fact, have what they call a SKU or a queue,
The
which
queue. Right.
and inside this queue, developers must submit their proposals to be able to get that project, what we would call permitted and uplinked to the grid. They have
Right.
had that queue closed for the past 8 years, 7 and 8. For some folks say it's 8 years. We're talking around. We'll use the
Which is
figure
crazy.
8 years.
Which is crazy to me.
Yeah, well, it's
8 years of having a queue that's locked down, and you're supposed to be the best of these with all of this money. And I'm not going to go into the politics of Biden providing all this money and getting all this money approved by Congress, but then there's a blockage to upload the energy.
Well, what we have
Which in turn, I think that in turns keeps our costs high.
it does, and
Right.
and what's very important for people, what people must understand in this process is that in the PJM, when you're talking about the PJM, you're talking about the regulatory entity that is composed of 1,100 and 1,131 different companies. And you have 513 of these companies have what we call voting rights. And inside of those voting rights, they're the ones who set the table and determine what project
in the queue
that gets moved to the front of the queue. And when we begin to look at the overall numbers of X voting members, you have 15. Affiliate members, there's 533. Associate members, there are 68. Special members, there are 2. Now, what I find very interesting about this breakdown is that 20% of this is supposed to be represented by people and advocacy organizations that represents the interests of the people. Well, we found out on May 11th, when there was a press conference that was held in front of the motel, the Marriott in Inner Harbor, that the PJM is basically, when you begin to look at their membership and look at those corporations that are members, that almost 75% or more of those companies are vested in the fossil fuel industry. And when we begin to look at it from that perspective, then we begin to understand where our problem comes in as it relates to the PJM, because no one who has power is going to concede that power without a demand. So the demand had to be placed through a litigation by Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania, who in December of 2023 got together with the other 13 jurisdictions and the District of Columbia, and all of those, whether they were red or blue states, because I've named some of the states that are specifically known to be red states and known to be states that have a large coal or have traditionally had coal as a large share of their state GOP, like states like West Virginia and Virginia, and even Pennsylvania. A lot of people unaware has a sizable coal industry. But the fact of the matter is, those data centers that exist in the PJM are the largest build out of data centers that exist within the confines of the United States. We have online presently between 500, the numbers vary. Some are saying 500 to 600 data centers, but Virginia leads the way with over 300 data centers in the state of Virginia. Now, what is very, very important for all of our listeners to understand, which was made very, very clear by Mr. Ted Trabue, who is a very dear friend and associate, who has recently been a guest here on the platform of Solar Now. In the future, he's presently serving on the Public Service Commission of Washington, D.C. Ted shared with me the fact that it doesn't matter where you build the data centers throughout those 13 states, which states you put in them, the cost is spread equally across all 13 states and the District of Columbia. This is why everybody sees this constant rise through these pass-throughs in the form of fees that have been passed through to their bills, because we're supporting
to the consumer
in the form of capacity auctions. Matter of fact, the breakdown in 2023 for the capacity year was $28.92. And that happened on the end of litigation, which was bought by Governor Shapiro, which I've already mentioned. He bought that lawsuit and they blocked a 2,100% increase, 2,100% rate increase was blocked. It was going to be a 20.
That was brave. That was brave of Governor Shapiro.
Oh, it was more. It was more than
it was
just
more than brave. I know it was expeditious. It was politically expeditious.
Yeah,
because the people are going to come after him. The pass-throughs are going to the consumers.
Oh, no question.
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt.
And you know, as we say,
they tried to burn his house down, but
well, Brother Banks, let's sort of put this in some context so folks can understand this mysterious bombing of Governor Shapiro's the governor's mansion in the state of Pennsylvania. As I indicated, he got together and bought this litigation in December of 2023. And in December of 2024, the governor's mansion was set on fire. And it was while the governor and his family was in the mansion. They very fortunately, him and his family got out safely, and they were able to stop the fire before it burned down the entire governor's mansion in the state of Pennsylvania. But this is, we're talking about something that actually happened, and it was sort of pushed aside as an attack of someone being anti-Semitic, how the news sort of put a twist on that. But I didn't forget the fact that Governor Shapiro told the PJM if they couldn't do any better than what they were doing, he would pull out the state of Pennsylvania. The state of Pennsylvania is the most powerful energy state in the United States. A lot of people think it's Texas. They think it's Oklahoma. But the state of Pennsylvania holds no backdrop to any state within the physical landmass of the United States as it relates to the different industries that it has. It has natural gas, it has oil, it has coal, it has hydro, it has nuclear, it has all of these resources, and they are one of the leading importers of energy to the PJMs because, for example, Maryland only produces about 40% of its energy inside the state compounds. It has to import, and that cost is passed on. That's another cost that is passed on through the ratepayers. The District of Columbia, with over close to 700,000 residents, only produces 4%. So the District of Columbia and the state of Maryland are probably the most two vulnerable states in the loop, other than, we would say, Virginia. But even Virginia has their own other energy natural resources that are inside of the physical landmass of the state of Virginia. So the District of Columbia and the state of Maryland, I would say, are probably the two most vulnerable states because they don't produce enough energy inside their physical landmasses in order to bring down those costs that are associated with these pass-throughs. And it has created one tremendous need Now, let's sort of look at this from a standpoint of someone who has been working on a large-scale solar power plant development. And I know that you've been working in my home state of South Carolina, where I hail from, on this project, but sort of share with our listening audience what you're doing and some of the responses that you've gotten from Duke Energy surrounding that. And specifically, you've had some communications with some officials with the Green Bank of the state of South Carolina, and you have brought up this issue of utilizing your particular project to become the power source for community solar for a portion of the community solar for the state of South Carolina, and what type of response you got from the gentleman that you were speaking to, if you don't mind sharing that information.
All right. Right now, the bottom line is South Carolina is not deregulated, right? That whole area, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, you have strong pushbacks from the utilities. And I can start with Santee Cooper. I can go to a couple little co-ops, Little River Co-op, up to Duke. We've been trying to work with Duke Energy to have them set up our uplink. That's our latest hurdle, is getting an uplink. And I've had Duke officials tell me, "Oh, well, we're not in your area." and I know that they're just a quarter mile below me, south of me, and a mile north of me where there's an uplink. So we're going through the process. We're talking to the PSC's Public Service Commission. I have another group, Southern Clean Energy, the Southern Clean Energy Group. I sent you the email on them, and we'll be meeting next week and trying to kind of get to the understanding of how we can get our uplink together. Either we're going to do it.
I don't want to cut you off there, but I want our listening audience to understand the importance of what you just said, because when you began to start dealing with these large power entities, utilities, what we call
900-pound gorillas.
Yeah, we're talking about,
and they don't want to give up their power.
Yeah, well, they don't have to give up their power.
We're generating power, right?
They don't have to give up their power, but these are some of the stiff fees that are associated. If your property is not within 1 mile of an uplink of what we would call a substation, you can pay as much as $1.5 million just to have those power lines strong. If you're going to go
right
on power posts and use traditional uplinks, we have looked at the cost associated, and it is much more cost effective to put those power lines in the earth, in the ground, and through cables, and it makes much more sense, especially when you're talking about rural communities that are heavily forest areas, because storms do happen, trees do fall, and they fall on power lines. And if your uplink is not in the ground, then you're going to have future problems. So these are just some of the different little games that are played by the utility providers and these market niches who control it will basically tell you you gotta do that. But we know you don't have to do that if you are able to get the local county or city governance to cooperate with you in this process. So, what has been your experience around this uplink? Because I know you struggle with this thing for quite some time.
We're still struggling with it, but I think with enough help and assistance and cooperative development with these other groups, we'll be able to come to a understanding. I mean, I understand it's a my my technical advisors are saying it's a game that they play, basically to get the most out of you. So we have another option. I think I may have mentioned to you that we have a subnet on our property where we don't need easements and all that other stuff to get to. If Duke said, "Oh, you can come and hook up to us a mile away," we can do the easement. We can do our own upgrades of our subnet on the property and see if we can then run that through to Duke. So I'll know more in the next 2 weeks. I think we're getting close to. I'm feeling very confident that we can get this done. But I guess the other point I'm trying to make, if PJM is going through these similar problems, and they've had all this backing behind it, then to come down to the southeastern United States, and it's not deregulated, and the utilities have a little bit more leverage, then you can imagine what we're going through.
Well, that was the reason why I brought that up, Chuck, because one of the things that's so frustrating to me to see you work so long and hard on this project, and time and money is something that at our age we don't have. You know, we got we got less money, but we got even less time. So it's even more important when we don't see a lot of our younger people having these discussions around opportunities. And this is very frustrating to me when I look at the fact of the matter is that South Carolina has gone through so much as it relates to energy. They've had a major fiasco there with the nuclear power facility there at the Santee, with the Santee nuclear power facility. They've gone through all kinds of changes with the Public Service Commission, even to the point where a number of them went to jail and they had to re-elect a complete new Public Service Commission. Also, the state legislature has completely pulled the cap off of renewables because there used to be a cap of something over it. I don't even think it was 100 megawatts for the state. They completely removed the cap for the state. That's how deep the need is because of the growing costs and expenditures for living. People are relocating back to South Carolina and North Carolina, the state, and they don't have the energy for a growing population base. And it is a very, very, very frustrating scenario when we begin to look at the various type of initiatives that have been passed in what we would call our deregulated states. For example, here in the state of Maryland, the governor and they've just completed signing a legislation where they pumped in some $200 million, and they passed new legislation here in the state of Maryland, which is also in that same article that addresses the issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion when it comes to communities of Black folks and other communities of color being able to get a fair shot at state contracts because of the chilling effect of the current administration on diversity, equity, and inclusion. It creates another problem where these large utility giants feel as though they don't have to have any diversity. They don't have to provide any inclusion of African American farmers and private landowners being a part of this billion-dollar industry. Here we're talking about billions of dollars of opportunity, and we're being and have been already left out. And Black-owned media did and is doing such a piss poor job on educating the African American community around the initiatives and programs. For example, here in the state of Maryland, Governor.
I think it's about that. I think it's about whoever's funding the promotion of these programs. It's not necessarily Black media. Black media has to engage and get these other programs to buy in to promoting on their platforms.
Well, bro, some of these platforms don't take advertising dollars. Now, I'm gonna call a spade a spade. I just spoke with the station manager at my alma mater, WEAA, over in Baltimore. Right. And I presented to them the online video which shows how Think Energy, and I'm going to be transparent. I am a energy advisor with Think Energy. The fact of the matter is, this opportunity provides residents in the state of Maryland an opportunity to enroll in what we would call community solar. Well, let's look at the community solar pilot, which was launched in the state of Maryland in 2017, and it transitioned to permanent status as of January 1st, 2025. Now, this project was closed for 8 years during the same period of time that the queue was closed by the PJM. And it has a direct relationship as to why they did not transition until the queue to permanent status until the queue was open in January 2025 after Governor Shapiro brought the lawsuit in December of 2023. In 2017, when this project was launched, the cap was 30,000 members, which that meant 30,000 Maryland residents could enroll in the project, first come, first serve. Well, within 6 months after the pilot was launched, the capacity was maxed out, even though it was kept closed for 8 years. This is the reality of what we're talking about. When the cap came off in January of 2025, the capacity was lifted to 300,000 residents. So that means we still have room for approximately today around 270,000 Maryland residents to enroll in the program. During that same 8 years while the queue was closed with the PJM and they were transitioning to permanent status from the pilot, the Public Service Commission in Maryland approved some 40 solar subscription companies to be able to enroll Maryland residents. Well, if you fast forward today and you talk to Black-owned media, and it doesn't cost them a dime to talk about these programs, because these programs are already funded through the Inflation Reduction Act. It does not cost the customer one dime to enroll in the program. It does not cost. They lock their rate in for 20 years. They can exit the program with no fees at any time. Now, people are quite aware, those who follow me on this program, that they can go to my website at positivechangepc.com. They can click on the link and they can enroll in all of those states that I mentioned. Because even though you see Maryland, DC, and Virginia, you can also enroll if you're in Illinois, if you're in Ohio, through my website. But this doesn't cost anything.
Let me ask one question. How many subscription companies are there now? Do you know?
I don't know the total number of subscription companies, because each state has the ability to limit that number. And just like in the District of
Columbia, get it. Okay.
The DC government, when this came through the Renewable Portfolio Standard legislation, which all 50 states and the District of Columbia was required by Congress to have completed by 2025 on how they were going to combat the challenge of climate change.
Right.
And in the District of Columbia, there was never a cap. And you have less than 10 companies that are actually companies that have been approved by the DC Public Service Commission. It's a very small number of subscription companies in the District of Columbia. And I know that the number is under 10, but if you go into Virginia has a very robust solar subscription program already with over 150,000 subscribers. And they have expanded their solar subscription program tremendously for capacity. So when we begin to look at the state of Virginia, when we begin to look at Maryland, Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey, New York, matter of fact, New York and New Jersey are leading the way right now with bill out for new solar and wind projects, which has enabled more subscribers to come online than any other state right now. I was just reading that article yesterday about that, and people can find that information also under the PJM, under advanced energy. You can scroll down and you can find the same information. But what I'm saying is each jurisdiction does something different. And if we don't get, Black-owned media does not drive the narrative for the Black community, nobody else is going to do it. And I'm going to tell you point blank, when you go to the faith community and you're talking about getting our ministers on board with this, it's not as easy as it sounds, because everybody's always talking about joining the faith community and what they will bring to the table in terms of their ability to get the community involved in this process. So we're coming to the end of our show, believe it or not, Chuck, and I don't know if I lost you, I'm going to try to get you back in here. I see that you're trying to get back and I'm trying to bring you back into the yeah, here we go. I got you back.
My bad.
And there's no problem. I lost you, but what I was explaining to my listening audience, that this thing, as I'm charging the media with, is something that has not just to be addressed by Black-owned media, but when we begin to, as Black folks, begin to talking about getting the word out, very few public housing developments today that you can knock on doors. Seniors, folks of our age, most of us still listen to Black-owned radio and Black-owned media. And if our spokespeople who are talking about everything, lottie-dottie, and everybody. Now, I'm glad that the Knicks won last night. They've had a long, long, dry run, but so has the Washington / Bullets Wizards has had such the same toward a long run. And I looked at all of these thousands and millions of people jumping up and down in every barrel in New York. That's cool. That's good. But what does that do to lower the electricity bill?
Not a damn thing.
I'm trying to look at where people's
kitchen
priorities are. And the same billionaires who are vested in the fossil fuel industry own these professional teams. Mm-hmm. This is what I'm trying to say to our listening folk. Are we cheering on our own demise because we don't have a choice? Everybody got to pay the electricity bill. And when you're paying an electricity bill every month and you are looking at $250 to $300 in pass-throughs every month, and you paying your bill, but you cannot pay anything on the pass-throughs, they keep building up. You look up, you're $2,000 in the arrears with your electricity bill. This is a reality that's happening to us, Chuck, right now, as baby boomers. And we're talking about people living in apartment buildings, brothers, not even homes. So I got a serious problem with Black-owned media because they don't want to talk about this issue. And it ain't costing them nothing. If they wanted to be a part of this, they can join this for little or nothing and put a link up on their web page of their for their station and benefit because of something called customer acquisition costs. And if people don't understand what that is, let me make it plain. It's called advertising. It's what companies pay before they sign a contract with a customer. And in the solar industry, for so-called rooftop solar, it runs between about $500, which is a researched cost norm of what it costs a solar company to ink a contract before a PV system goes on the roof. So when you be talking about commercial, you're talking about $1,500 to $1,000 or $1,500 just for the referral, or just for the cost to acquire that customer. Well,
you lost me now. This is for Think Plus, or you're saying subscription in general?
I'm talking about the customer acquisition industry in America is going to do $26 billion this year. We're talking about NBC, ABC, CBS, streaming services, platforms, regardless of what it is, you constantly being bombarded with ads. Right. That is nothing but customer acquisition to get something in front of you subliminally. So when you get ready to buy that product, you will buy that brand name. It is advertising and marketing. And that is the lifeblood of corporate America because it is 100% 1,000% write-off. People don't understand why the company spent all of these $1 billion in advertising, because it's all of it's written off. That's why they don't pay taxes. We have to look at this industry from the standpoint of what drives the bottom line. You don't have anything, I don't care how great your product or what it is, but if don't nobody know about it and you're not getting in the front of your market niche or the people who need that service or that product, you ain't talking about nothing. Well, this is something that you don't have to sell. Everybody's gonna pay their electricity bill. Now, Think Energy came up with a way to provide a return on investment, and it's nothing more than a customer acquisition company to drive people to enroll in community solar in the 13 states and the District of Columbia. That's all Think Energy is. And as I've indicated to people, it costs nothing for the subscriber to enroll, and 40% of the program must go to low and moderate income residents. Well, if you go to your black churches and they're not willing to pass the information out, you go to your Hispanic churches and they're not willing to, even after you provide a video that shows them how they can benefit, because it may be coming from someone who look like me and you, Chuck. They don't even want to listen. So that's my pushback on black-owned media, brother, because like I said, you call these black-owned radio stations, I don't care if they're WPFW, 88.9 in Baltimore, which is the voice of the community, my alma mater, and I put this in front of them, and they couldn't provide me with any reason why they couldn't participate other than the general manager, well, it don't smell right. I said, well, what smells wrong about it? What, can you give me something? Because this is a state-run program. This is a program that came out of the state, community solar. The program could not exist in any of these 13 states if the state legislature had not approved legislation so community solar could thrive in that state, because that's why you don't have it in the deeper South on the level you have in the PJM region, because those state legislatures have not done anything on deregulating the marketplace. So if you cannot show where you can get a large enough base of people to join the program, it's not going to flourish there. I'm looking at that experience in Mississippi right now. I've had this discussion, and several of the states. So it's very, very much needed that we begin to understand what is out here, what is available, and how people can protect themselves. And and we've come to the end of the show, and I really appreciate you taking time to, from your schedule, brother, join me today so we can talk about this thing. But this is problematic when you have a project that the state of South Carolina, if they come in and weigh in and say, well, we want to look at your farm and this solar power project and help us power our community solar project for the state of South Carolina for subscribers, bro. It's clear to me a lot of the obstacles and the problems that you will have, whether it be with the rural co-op or with Duke or everybody else, it'll clear its way, because the state has the final say through their energy and policy arm, because every state has one, and they do have some juice. they do have some juice. And
we will see. And I'd like to bring this young lady on from the Southeast Energy Group on your show. I'll be meeting with her next week, but hopefully shortly thereafter we can get her on the show, and then we can go and talk with her about the issues in the Southeast, in particular South Carolina.
Well, I welcome that opportunity, and you got access to this program, brother, whenever you want to. So you don't have to be. You're not a stranger to this platform. But what I'm saying, brother, I have gotten to the point where I'm going to speak truth to power as I see it when I go out in these streets. And I'm going to the various food pantries, and I'm talking to people, and I'm just giving them just trying to give them some information and say, will you look at this, and this is how this would benefit your organization, but it's going to benefit the people who's coming through the door. And that's the problem I'm having. The folks who need the help the most, who are running to these food pantries, who are already way behind the 8 ball. If those entities are not willing to provide that information to those folks, they're not going to get it from nowhere else, especially Black and Hispanic communities. Because let's be real, man, people just don't have that much faith in people these days. And the only place I do know that people still have a little trust, they put a little they can put a little trust behind the man who stands in the pulpit every Sunday morning. So I ain't mad at that. I don't have a problem with people's belief system, but our churches have to play a much more important role in this when we begin to look at this as a national community solar program, which was the quote unquote shining star of the Biden-Harris administration, the Solar for All Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which had $27 billion put in it, and that money has not gone anyplace. It's still in litigation, 20 billion of it, the $7 billion is still in play, because you cannot just take money, I don't care what administration it is, and just move that money and do what you want to do. We understanding now why Elon Musk just announced that I'm the richest man on the planet. Well, he wasn't the richest man on the planet before he put almost $1 billion in 47's campaign, and he and did the dirty work, and fired all over 200,000 Black women from federal jobs around this country, and took data, private information and data that they don't have no business having on all of us, but yet we are subject to the same impacts when we look at what's going on in Memphis. That was a very, very educational article that you sent me. I had already posted it some years back about the poisoning of Memphis and what is going on there. It is an actual crime and travesty what's going on right now in Memphis. Because if we begin to look at the relationships between the defunding of Black America, and I borrow this straight from my brother, Roland Martin, I'm going to give him credit where credit's due. We're talking about when you begin to move political power and you move Black representation from Congress, which has a direct relationship with who gets how much, when, what, and where. It is a reason why they are attacking Black leadership around this country. And this thing filters from Congress to the Senate, to the school board, to the state level, down to the city council, to the school boards, right on down. And if Black folks, we don't get on board and understand how to connect the dots between the energy sources which run the country and media on what they need to be talking about and what they need to be putting out here to educate our folks around these issues, we're going to find ourselves in a worse situation than it was when we came through back in the 60s and had to stand in them lines and fight them dogs for so-called opportunity in a country that we've been fighting in and for and against since we've been here. And that's just the way I see it.
Since the country's been here.
Yeah.
I got it. Well, again, I appreciate you having me on. And hopefully we got some light. We've shed some light on the subject, but what they say, the struggle continues.
No question. And and I always can end my show with this. You know, this show is brought to you by the Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative LLC, which serves as an economic blueprint for renewable energy companies, both large and small, along with increasing market share for African and African American owned renewable energy companies. To address the high energy costs at our historically Black colleges and universities, to utilize Black-owned farmlands and HBCU campuses to develop capacity and initiatives. And I put a plug in that. And that is where the problem begins. When you begin to look at where our Black-owned radio stations are, then most of them are located at our HBCUs. And if you have administrations that are so afraid that they're going to lose a few crumbs, that they don't understand that they have the diamond setting within their physical landmass, and they must move to renewables on these HBCU campuses and provide African and African American developers and engineers to come in and play a more important role in helping them to put green renewable energy with battery storage and wind on these campuses. We're going to continue to be in the bind we are, because these Negroes will take these few crumbs that these little corporations pass out to the university and continue to pay through the nose for gas, water, and electricity. And with that being said, till next week, we don't want people to meet us back here. We want people to beat us back here. As I close another exciting edition of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on on Black America. And until next week, we say go in peace. So you be blessed, Brother Banks. And until next week, go in peace.
All right, sir.
All right.